The world changed when we could touch each other's thoughts. In 2147, humanity stood connected through the neural fabric, a global biotechnological network that linked minds across continents, across cultures, across the boundaries that had once separated us. What began as a quest to overcome the limitations of language had evolved into the most profound technological advancement in human history. And at the heart of this revolution stood Dr. Lin On, whose pioneering work on the empathy link protocol promised to elevate the neural fabric from mere thought exchange to true emotional resonance. The morning of the public demonstration dawned bright over Nexus City. Through the panoramic windows of her laboratory at the Synergy Research Center, Lin An watched the first rays of sunlight glint off the city's sleek towers. Each building housed thousands of neural fabric nodes, connecting the metropolis into a symphony of shared consciousness. From her vantage point on the 87th floor, she could see the core Nexus building in the distance, the physical heart of the global network, its crystalline architecture pulsing with subtle blue light. "Final diagnostic complete," announced the lab's AI assistant. "All systems nominal. Neural pathways calibrated. Empathy link protocol standing by." Anne nodded, brushing a strand of dark hair from her face. At 42, she carried herself with the careful precision of someone who had dedicated her life to understanding the intricacies of the human mind. Her slender fingers tapped at the neural interface embedded in her temple, standard issue for all neural fabric researchers. The small, pearlescent disk hummed in response, connecting her to the network. "Begin pre-demonstration sequence," she instructed, "and locate Dr. Maya Ortiz. I need her psychological assessment before we proceed." As the lab technician scurried about making final preparations and retreated to her private office, the walls were sparse. A few academic certificates, a single photograph of her parents at the groundbreaking ceremony for the first neural fabric hub in Vietnam. She had never been one for sentimentality. Emotions were variables to be studied, quantified, and ultimately, through her work, shared. The door slid open, revealing Dr. Maya Ortiz. The psychological expert's presence always brought warmth to the sterile environment of the lab. While Anne approached the mind through algorithms and neural pathways, Ortiz understood the human psyche through its natural rhythms and patterns. "You look tense, Lynn," Ortiz observed, her Spanish accent lilting. "Today is your triumph, not your trial." Anne managed a thin smile. "It's not triumph until it works. Are the volunteers ready?" 317 participants, all neurologically vetted and psychologically prepared. Ortiz handed over a neural tablet. "But, I should warn you, there's growing apprehension among the government observers. Colonel Tran is particularly concerned about the emotional feedback loops we observed in the beta tests. Hung Tran still thinks we're creating a hive mind," and sighed. "After 5 years, he still doesn't understand what we're building." "Then show him today," Ortiz said, placing a reassuring hand on Anne's shoulder. "Show everyone." The demonstration arena resembled an amphitheater, its circular design allowing the 300 volunteers to face each other while seated. Each participant wore a neural interface more advanced than the standard public model, sleek bands that wrapped around their temples, pulsing with gentle blue light. At the center stood Anne, surrounded by holographic displays, showing neural activity in real time. From the observation deck, government officials, corporate sponsors, and media representatives watched with anticipation. Colonel Hung Tran sat stiffly in the front row, his military posture at odds with the relaxed technology executives around him. "Distinguished guests," Anne began, her voice amplified throughout the arena. "Today marks the evolution of human connection. Since the inception of the neural fabric, we have shared thoughts, memories, and knowledge. But the empathy link protocol will allow us to share what truly makes us human, our emotions." She gestured to the volunteers. "Our participants represent a cross-section of humanity, different ages, backgrounds, professions, Today, they will not only think as one, but feel as one. Anne nodded to her technical team. Initiating empathy link in 3, 2, 1. The arena filled with a soft hum as the protocol activated. On the holographic displays, neural pathways illuminated like constellations coming to life. The volunteers' expressions shifted in unison, first surprise, then wonder. A collective gasp rippled through the amphitheater. Initial emotional synchronization successful, reported the chief technician. Harmony index at 94% and stable. And allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Years of research, countless failed prototypes, endless debates about the ethics of emotional connectivity, all validated in this moment. She glanced up at the observation deck, noting with particular pleasure Colonel Tran's amazed expression. Now, we'll introduce a controlled emotional stimulus, and announced, Participant 42 will view a series of images designed to evoke specific emotional responses. Through the empathy link, these emotions will be shared with all participants, but modulated through our safety protocols. The designated volunteer, a middle-aged teacher from Sector 7, nodded as his neural interface brightened. The holographic displays showed his emotional centers activating, first with calm neutrality, then shifting toward a warm, nostalgic happiness as the images began. N monitored the collective neural activity. As you can see, the emotional response is propagating through the network, but each participant retains their own emotional identity. This isn't a hive mind, it's an empathy network. But something changed. On the displays, unexpected neural pathways began firing. Participant 42's emotional signature suddenly spiked toward anxiety, then fear, emotions not programmed into the stimulus sequence. "What's happening?" Anne demanded, turning to her team. Before anyone could respond, a wave of gasps and cries erupted from the volunteers. The neural displays flashed warning indicators as emotional signals cascaded through the network, amplifying with each transmission. "Shut it down!" Anne ordered, but the technicians were already working frantically. "We can't," the chief technician shouted. "Something's locked the protocol open. The emotional feedback is—" The rest of his words were drowned out as chaos engulfed the arena. Volunteers clutched their heads, some screaming, others laughing hysterically. Some collapsed into their seats, overwhelmed by the tsunami of unfiltered emotions crashing through their minds. On the observation deck, panic spread as the officials witnessed the breakdown. Security personnel rushed into the arena, attempting to remove neural interfaces from the affected volunteers, only to find them locked in place. Anne fought to maintain her composure as she accessed the emergency override protocols. Her fingers flew across the holographic controls, attempting to isolate the source of the disruption. "There," she muttered, identifying an anomalous code sequence buried within the empathy link's firmware. Not a glitch, a deliberate intrusion. As she worked to counter it, a message flashed across her personal neural interface. "Emotions are the virus. We are the cure, Void Weavers," with a final command sequence, and managed to sever the connections. The neural interfaces powered down, leaving the volunteers dazed and disoriented. Medical teams rushed into the arena as security established a perimeter. Colonel Tran approached Anne, his face rigid with controlled fury. 317 citizens. Doctor, 317 minds you just traumatized." "It was sabotage," Anne insisted, showing him the message. "Someone deliberately corrupted the protocol." "Void Weavers?" Tran read, his expression darkening. "The cyber-terrorist group? They've never targeted neural technology before." "They have now," Anne replied grimly. "And they knew exactly how to exploit the empathy link." "This project is suspended, effective immediately," Tran declared, "by order of the Global Security Council." As security began clearing the arena, and watched her life's work crumble before her eyes. But beneath the devastation, Something else stirred. Determination. Whoever had done this understood her technology intimately, and she would find them. In the days following the catastrophic demonstration, the Synergy Research Center transformed from a beacon of innovation to a fortress under siege. Government investigators combed through every line of code, while security personnel monitored all entry points. The neural fabric itself underwent emergency restrictions, with emotional transmission protocols globally disabled. Anne had been relegated to an auxiliary laboratory. Her access to the main research systems revoked pending investigation. But isolation had its advantages, freedom from constant surveillance being the primary one. "Anything?" she asked, not looking up from her neural tablet as the laboratory door slid open. "Nothing useful through official channels," Ortiz replied, securing the door behind her. "The government is calling it a neural security incident publicly, but Colonel Tran has classified the Void Weaver's connection." Anne nodded, continuing to scroll through code fragments recovered from the demonstration. "They're afraid of panic. The neural fabric connects 4 billion minds. If word spreads that it can be weaponized emotionally—" "That's not all," Ortiz said, lowering her voice. "I accessed the medical reports from the volunteers. Their symptoms aren't subsiding as expected. Several are experiencing persistent emotional dysregulation, random episodes of fear, euphoria, rage. Psychosomatic aftereffects? That was my first thought," Ortiz admitted. "But the neural scans show something else. The corrupted empathy link didn't just transmit emotions. It altered the neurochemical baselines in the participants. It's as if it was designed to create addiction," and finished, looking up from her tablet. "An emotional addiction." "Exactly. The participants who experience the most extreme emotional spikes are now showing withdrawal-like symptoms. Their brains are craving that intensity again." And set down her tablet, her mind racing. "That wasn't an attack, it was a test run." "For what?" "I don't know yet, but I need access to the core nexus to find out." And stood, pacing the small laboratory. The Void Weaver's message said, "Emotions are the virus. They're targeting the emotional aspects of the neural fabric specifically." "You won't get authorization," Ortiz warned. "Tran has locked down everything related to Empathy Link." "Then I'll need to go outside official channels." And hesitated, then added, "I need to find Marcus." Ortiz's eyes widened. "Marcus? The gray hat?" "Lynn, if you're caught working with him—" "I won't be caught," and insisted. "And he's the only one who might understand what the Void Weavers are planning. He's encountered them before." "How will you even find him?" "He's been off the grid since the neural rights protests last year." Anne tapped her neural interface. "He's off the official grid, but there are other networks." That night, in her apartment overlooking the eastern quadrant of Nexus City, and disconnected her neural interface from the government-monitored channels. From a hidden compartment beneath her desk, she retrieved an older model interface, bulkier, less elegant, but crucially, untraceable. It had been a gift from Marcus years ago, when they had first collaborated on neural network security protocols. She activated the device, feeling the familiar tingle as it established connection with the ShadowNet. The underground network used by those who preferred their thoughts remained private from the automated monitoring systems of the neural fabric. The ShadowNet operated on outdated infrastructure, purposely inefficient to avoid detection. Instead of the seamless thought streams of the official network, communication here was fragmented, relying on coded symbols and shared reference points. Anne projected her thoughts into the network. The butterfly seeks the shadow of the broken tower. The passphrase would alert Marcus, if he was monitoring. She waited, watching the subtle indicators on her interface. Minutes passed. Then, a response. "The tower casts no shadow when the sun stands at zenith." Relief washed over her. The counter passphrase was correct. Marcus had received her message. Another transmission followed. "Nexus Park, Eastern Fountain, midnight, Come alone. No official tech. Anne deactivated the shadow interface and looked out at the city. The gleaming spires of Nexus Park were visible in the distance, illuminated against the night sky. Whatever the Void Weavers had planned, finding answers began tonight. Nexus Park occupied the geographical center of the city, a vast expanse of engineered nature surrounding the original neural fabric hub. During the day, it teemed with people, executives taking neural-enhanced working lunches, students downloading information packets directly to their minds, couples sharing consciousness in intimate neural bonds. At midnight, it was nearly deserted. Security drones patrolled the main pathways, their sensors sweeping for unauthorized activity, and kept to the shadows, using her knowledge of the patrol patterns to avoid detection. Without her official neural interface, she felt strangely isolated, cut off from the ambient data that normally surrounded every citizen. The Eastern Fountain came into view, a massive installation of water and light, programmed to respond to the collective emotional state of nearby neural fabric users. With few people present, it pulsed with slow, meditative patterns of blue and green. "You're out of practice at moving unseen," a voice remarked from behind her. Anne turned to find Marcus leaning against a tree. At 54, his face had acquired new lines since she'd last seen him, and his once dark hair was now predominantly gray. But his eyes retained the same intensity, analytical, cautious, yet curious. "And you're as dramatic as ever," she replied, unable to suppress a small smile. Despite their differences, Marcus had been a valued colleague until the neural fabric had advanced beyond what he considered ethically acceptable. Says the woman who sent a shadow message after 3 years of silence. He pushed away from the tree, approaching her. "The demonstration didn't go as planned. I take it? It was sabotaged by the Void Weavers." Marcus's expression sharpened. "Show me." Anne described the incident in detail, including the corrupted code she'd identified and the message left behind. Marcus listened without interruption, his fingers occasionally twitching, an old habit from when he would mentally code solutions to problems. "You were lucky," he said when she finished. "What you experienced was just a fraction of what they're capable of." "You know them?" Anne asked, though she had suspected as much. "I've been tracking them for 18 months. Marcus glanced around before continuing. "They started as a fringe group, neural purists who believed the fabric was corrupting authentic human experience. But they've evolved, become more organized, more technically sophisticated, and more violent," and added, "Yes." Marcus's expression darkened. 3 months ago, they attacked a neural fabric hub in Singapore, made it look like a technical failure. But I found their fingerprints. 17 people died from neural feedback. Anne felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. "Why haven't I heard about this?" "Because the Global Security Council classified it. They're afraid of exactly what you'd expect. Mass panic. People disconnecting from the fabric. Tran must know. Then, why didn't he recognize the threat sooner?" "Bureaucracy. Compartmentalization." Marcus shrugged. "Or maybe he did, and that's why he shut you down so quickly." Anne considered this. What do they want? Their message said emotions are the virus. From what I've gathered, they believe emotional content on the neural fabric is corrupting humanity, that we're becoming addicted to artificial emotional stimulation, losing our capacity for genuine feeling. And their solution. "That's what worries me," Marcus said. "Their leader, calls himself Silence, has developed a methodology he terms emotional cleansing. He believes humanity would be better off without negative emotions entirely." "That's not possible," and argued, "Emotions can't simply be removed without damaging fundamental cognitive functions." "Not removed, reprogrammed." Marcus's voice took on an urgent quality. "I've intercepted fragments of their code. They're developing a neural virus that targets the limbic system, suppressing emotional responses deemed disruptive: fear, anger, grief, and felt herself pale. That's not reprogramming. That's neural lobotomy on a mass scale. Exactly. And your empathy link protocol just gave them the perfect delivery system. Marcus stepped closer. The neural fabric was designed to transmit thoughts, ideas. Your protocol opened the door to transmitting emotional states directly to the limbic system, bypassing normal cognitive filters. How close are they to deploying this virus? Close enough that they risked exposing themselves at your demonstration. Marcus's expression was grim. I believe they're planning to trigger it through the core nexus. Once activated, it would spread through the entire neural fabric within minutes. Anne took a deep breath, processing the implications. I need to get back into the core nexus, find the vulnerability they exploited, and patch it. The government has it locked down. Then I'll need to find another way in. She met Marcus's gaze. Will you help me? He studied her face. You still believe in the neural fabric, after everything. I believe in human connection, she corrected. The fabric is just a tool, one that can be misused, yes, but also one that's brought understanding across divisions we thought insurmountable. I won't let the Void Weavers corrupt that. Marcus was silent for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. I'll help you. But not because I believe in your network. Because 4 billion minds are at risk. And you're the only one who fully understands how the empathy link works. Fair enough, Anne replied. Where do we start? With the one thing the Void Weavers don't expect. A hint of his old smile returned. The truth. The following morning, and found herself facing Colonel Tran in a secured conference room at the Global Security Council headquarters. The military man's expression was as impassive as ever, but a new tension lined his shoulders as he reviewed the data she had presented. This is highly irregular, Dr. Anne, he said finally. You were instructed to cease all work related to the empathy link protocol. With respect, Colonel, this isn't about my protocol anymore. Anne leaned forward. The Void Weavers have been operating longer than we realized. The Singapore incident wasn't an isolated system failure. It was a test run. And my demonstration was the next phase. Tran's eyes narrowed. How do you know about Singapore? That information is classified. Because I made it my business to know. Anne replied, deciding against revealing Marcus's involvement. Yet, the same way I discovered this, she gestured to the neural tablet between them, displaying the corrupted code recovered from the demonstration. This isn't just sabotage. It's the framework for a neural virus designed to alter emotional processing throughout the entire neural fabric. And your source for this analysis? Anne met his gaze steadily. I have a contact familiar with their methods. Tran was silent for a moment, weighing her words. Let's assume you're correct. What exactly are they planning? They believe negative emotions are a societal disease. Their leader, Silence, has developed code that can suppress emotional responses through the neural fabric. My empathy link provided them with the perfect transmission vector. Emotional suppression, Tran repeated, his professional composure cracking slightly. That's neural totalitarianism. And finished, control not through force, but through removing the capacity for dissent, for anger, for righteous indignation. Tran stood, pacing the length of the conference room. As a military man, he had always been skeptical of the neural fabric, had advocated for stricter controls, more oversight. But even he couldn't have anticipated this threat. What do you need? He asked finally. Access to the core nexus. Anne replied immediately. I need to examine the central protocols, identify the vulnerability they exploited, and create a countermeasure. The core is under lockdown by direct order of the Security Council. Then change the order. And challenged. Or 4 billion people will have their emotional autonomy compromised. Tran studied her. Years of military discipline battling with the urgency of the situation. I can grant you limited access, supervised, with a security team present at all times. I need unrestricted access, and I need to bring in outside expertise. That's not possible. Anne stood, facing him directly. Colonel, the Void Weavers understand neural technology in ways your security experts don't. I need someone who thinks like them. You mean a hacker? Tran's voice hardened. Absolutely not. I mean Marcus Wolf, and countered, former chief of neural security for the Global Council, the man who designed half the protection protocols currently running in the core nexus. Tran's expression registered surprise. Wolf went off-grid years ago, became a vocal critic of the neural fabric. Yes, which makes him the perfect person to help us. He understands both the technology and its potential for misuse. The colonel considered this, obviously conflicted. Wolf was declared a person of interest after the neural rights protests. Bringing him into the core nexus would violate at least 7 security protocols. And not bringing him in might cost us everything the neural fabric was built to achieve. Anne pressed her advantage. You've never trusted the fabric fully, Colonel. You've always seen its risks. Now those risks are materializing exactly as you feared. Help me stop it. The appeal to his foresight worked. Tran nodded slowly. 12 hours. You and Wolf. With my team monitoring every action. If I detect anything suspicious, I shut it down immediately. Agreed, Anne said, relief washing through her. We'll be ready tomorrow at 800. As she left the Security Council building, and allowed herself a moment of guarded optimism. They had a chance now, small, perhaps, but real. She activated her shadow interface, sending a brief message to Marcus. We're in tomorrow, 800, be ready. The core nexus rose from the center of Nexus City, like a crystalline spire. Its architecture designed to evoke the neural pathways it housed, usually bustling with technicians, researchers, and administrators. Today, it stood eerily quiet, the lockdown evident in the armed guards positioned at every entrance. Anne and Marcus were escorted through multiple security checkpoints, each more stringent than the last. Their neural interfaces were temporarily modified with government security protocols, tracking their every action within the facility. Colonel Tran himself led the security detail, his expression making clear that his cooperation came with significant reservations. The central cortex is on sublevel 5, Tran explained, as they descended in a transparent elevator. All neural fabric transmissions are routed through it. You'll have access to the primary neural architecture, but core safeguards remain in place. Those safeguards may be exactly what the Void Weavers have compromised, Marcus pointed out, speaking for the first time since their arrival. We'll need to examine the entire system. Tran's jaw tightened, but he nodded curtly. The central cortex was a vast, circular chamber, dominated by a spherical structure of interlaced light patterns, a physical representation of the neural fabric's core processes. Workstations surrounded it, each designed for specialized neural monitoring and maintenance. 12 hours, Tran reminded them, checking his timepiece. Not a minute more. As the security team established a perimeter, Anne and Marcus approached the nearest workstations. Where do we start? Anne asked, surveying the immense complexity of the system before them. By understanding our enemy, Marcus replied, activating the neural interface. I've been tracking Void Weaver's communications for months. Their coding style is distinctive. His fingers moved across the holographic display with practiced precision, initiating deep system diagnostics, and worked alongside him, focusing on the empathy link protocols that had been integrated into the neural fabric. Hours passed as they delved deeper into the system, searching for traces of intrusion. Security personnel watched with a mixture of suspicion and growing respect as the two experts navigated the labyrinthine architecture of the world's most complex network. There, Marcus said suddenly, highlighting a section of code. See it? Anne leaned closer. Within the standard neural transmission protocols was a subtle modification, virtually undetectable unless you knew exactly what to look for. It's a parasitic routine, she realized. Dormant until activated, but integrated into the base firmware. It's been here for months, at least, Marcus confirmed grimly. They've been patient, embedding their code gradually through routine updates. But what does it do? Anne began analyzing the foreign code, her expertise in neural architecture allowing her to trace its potential functions. It seems to be targeting emotional response patterns, but the mechanism is... She stopped abruptly, understanding dawning. It's not suppressing emotions, it's harvesting them. Marcus frowned. Explain. The code is designed to stimulate extreme emotional responses, then capture the resulting neural patterns. Anne's voice grew urgent as the implications became clear. The chaos at the demonstration wasn't just a test. It was a collection point. They were gathering emotional data. For what purpose? To create a library of emotional triggers. Anne pulled up her own research data, comparing it with the parasitic code. My work on the empathy link mapped how emotions propagate through neural networks. This code is using that research, but inverting it, creating emotional contagions designed to spread and amplify. Emotional viruses, Marcus murmured. Weaponized feelings. Exactly. And with the neural fabric as a delivery system, they could trigger specific emotional states in billions of people simultaneously. Anne's hands moved rapidly across the interface. Fear, panic, rage, or their opposites. Apathy, blind trust, euphoric compliance. Mass emotional manipulation, Marcus concluded. Silence doesn't want to eliminate emotions. He wants to control them. Colonel, Anne called, waving Tran over. We've found it. The Void Weavers have embedded code throughout the neural fabric that can trigger and manipulate emotional states across the entire network. Tran reviewed their findings, his military training barely containing his alarm. Can you remove it? Not without taking the entire fabric offline for days, Marcus answered. It's too deeply integrated, but we can create a firewall specifically designed to block these emotional triggers. How long? A few hours to design it. Implementation would require a global neural update. Tran nodded. Do it. I'll get authorization for the update from the Security Council. As he moved away to contact his superiors, and continued analyzing the parasitic code. Something about its structure nagged at her, a familiarity that went beyond coincidence. Marcus, she said quietly, this coding architecture, it resembles early versions of the empathy link. Not the public versions, but the developmental prototypes. Marcus paused his work, turning to her with a grave expression. Someone with inside knowledge of your research. Not just knowledge, access. Anne felt a cold certainty settling over her. The Void Weavers have someone inside Synergy? Before Marcus could respond, the lights in the central cortex flickered. The holographic displays distorted momentarily, then stabilized. But something had changed. The neural architecture visualization at the center of the room pulsed with new patterns, spreading like wildfire through the represented network. They're here, Marcus said, fingers flying across his workstation. They've activated the trigger. Tran rushed back, security personnel moving to high alert positions. What's happening? The Void Weavers are launching their attack. Anne explained, working frantically to counter the spreading code. They must have detected our presence in the system. I thought you said it would take them time to implement, Tran demanded. I was wrong. And admitted, the trigger was already in place. They just needed to activate it. Throughout the core nexus, alarms began to sound. On monitoring displays around the cortex, neural activity maps showed abnormal patterns spreading across the global network. Reports began flooding in from neural fabric nodes worldwide. Singapore hub reporting emotional disruption events. European sector experiencing mass anxiety responses. North American neural traffic showing coordinated fear patterns. They're starting with fear and realized, studying the data, creating a global panic that will make people more susceptible to the second wave. Second wave? Tran asked. Compliance, Marcus answered grimly. After fear comes relief, and with it, suggestibility. They'll use that window to implement permanent emotional controls. We need to cut off the fabric entirely, Tran decided, reaching for his emergency authorization codes. No, and grabbed his arm. 4 billion people are connected right now. A sudden disconnection would cause widespread neural shock. We need a targeted approach. What do you suggest? Tran demanded. Anne turned to Marcus. We need to trace the activation signal to its source. Find silence. That's impossible, Tran objected. The neural fabric has millions of access points. Not for this level of system access, Marcus corrected, already working to track the intrusion. This came from somewhere with direct connection to the core nexus. A synergy researcher, and concluded, the betrayal still fresh. Someone with clearance. Marcus nodded, his expression hardening as the trace program ran. Got it. The signal originated from Sublevel 8, Neural Ethics Division, and felt her blood run cold. Maya, Dr. Ortiz heads that division. Your psychological expert? Tran asked, already signaling his security team. She had access to everything. The empathy link research, the volunteer psychological profiles, the neural architecture. Anne could hardly believe it, yet the evidence was irrefutable. And she was helping me investigate after the demonstration. Keeping tabs on your progress, Marcus said grimly. We need to confront her. And decided, not just arrest her, understand her. She may be the only one who can help us stop this. Tran hesitated, then nodded. My team will secure the area. You two focus on countering the attack. As security forces move toward the elevators and return to her workstation. We need to create an emotional circuit breaker, she told Marcus. Something that can disrupt the fear cascade before it reaches critical mass. The empathy link protocols, Marcus suggested. Could we reverse them? Instead of propagating emotions, create a dampening field? Theoretically, yes. Anne began modifying her original code. But we'd need a focal point, a nexus of calm to counter the spreading fear. Marcus looked at her meaningfully. You... and understood immediately. I could enter the fabric directly, serve as the emotional anchor. But the neural load would be enormous. No single mind could process that much emotional feedback. Not alone, Marcus agreed. But I could join you. Create a shared consciousness space. A neural dyad. And mused, the scientific possibilities momentarily eclipsing the crisis. It's never been attempted at this scale. We don't have many options, Marcus reminded her. And time is running out. On the monitoring displays, the emotional contagion continued to spread. Reports of public disturbances were increasing as fear took hold in population centers worldwide. Prepare the neural immersion chambers. Anne instructed the remaining technicians. Full cognitive integration protocols. As they worked, and modified the empathy link code to create the dampening effect they needed. Marcus established the neural dyad framework that would allow their minds to withstand the emotional onslaught. This will be intense, and warned as they prepared to enter the immersion chambers. Our consciousness will be exposed to billions of minds in panic. Just like old times, Marcus replied with a grim smile. Except back then, it was just theoretical debates about neural ethics. Marcus, Anne said softly, if this doesn't work. It will, he interrupted. We built this network. We understand it better than silence ever could. The immersion chambers resembled translucent capsules, lined with neural interfaces, far more advanced than the public models. As Anne lay back in her chamber, technicians attached primary neural connectors to her temples, spine, and wrists. Neural immersion in 3, 2, 1. The chief technician counted down. The world dissolved around Anne. her consciousness expanding beyond the limitations of her physical form. For a moment, there was only the vast, interconnected web of the neural fabric, billions of minds linked in an intricate dance of thought and emotion. Then, the fear hit her. A tidal wave of terror, anxiety, and panic from millions of minds simultaneously. It threatened to overwhelm her consciousness, to drown her in the collective fear of humanity. Lynn, Marcus's thoughts reached her, providing an anchor in the chaos. Focus on me, established the dyad, and directed her consciousness toward him, their minds intertwining to create a single, more resilient entity. Together, they withstood the emotional storm, creating a pocket of calm within the maelstrom. The dampening field, and communicated, we need to expand it outward from the core nexus. Using the modified empathy link protocols, they began projecting waves of calm and clarity through the neural fabric. It was like pouring cool water onto a raging fire, each wave temporarily suppressing the fear, creating space for rational thought to return. But the fear kept coming, relentless and ever-changing. As they would quell one emotional surge, another would emerge with greater intensity. Someone's fighting back, Marcus realized, adapting to our countermeasures. Silence, and agreed, he's in the system too. Their shared consciousness expanded further, searching for the source of the emotional attacks. Through the billions of connected minds, they sought the distinctive pattern that would reveal their adversary. There, Marcus identified a concentrated point of emotional manipulation. That's not a natural neural pattern. Together, they focused their awareness on the anomaly, tracing it through the neural fabric to its source. As they drew closer, they sensed a presence, cold, calculated, yet paradoxically passionate in its conviction. Dr. Ann. A new consciousness addressed them directly, and Marcus Wolf, the architect and the critic, united at last. How poetic. Silence, and projected, or should I call you Maya? Dr. Ortiz is merely my vessel. The consciousness replied, I am silence, the inevitable evolution of emotional governance, the solution to humanity's greatest weakness. You're manipulating billions of people against their will, Marcus accused. I'm freeing them from the tyranny of unregulated emotion. Silence countered. For too long, humanity has been enslaved by fear, anger, and hatred. I offer liberation by replacing one tyranny with another. And argued, emotions aren't a disease to be cured. They're essential to human experience, even the difficult ones. A scientist's naivety. Silence dismissed. You created the tools for emotional control, Dr. Ann, but lacked the vision to use them properly. The neural fabric will fulfill its true purpose, not just connecting minds, but perfecting them. As they conversed in the abstract space of the neural fabric, Ann became aware of a subtle restructuring occurring around them. Silence was using their distraction to strengthen his hold on the emotional centers of the network. Marcus. She communicated privately through their dyad. He's stalling us. We need to act now. What's the plan? The core nexus. If we can trigger an emergency isolation protocol, we can cut off his access to the global network. That would sever all neural fabric connections temporarily, Marcus cautioned. Better than permanent emotional manipulation, Ann replied. Together, they shifted their focus to the core nexus systems, preparing to initiate the isolation protocols. But silence detected their intention immediately. How predictable, his consciousness mocked. But I've prepared for this contingency. Suddenly, Ann felt a searing pain through her neural connection, a directed attack on their shared consciousness. The dyad wavered as silence launched a barrage of concentrated negative emotional states directly at them. Hold on, Marcus urged, as their shared mind threatened to fracture under the assault. Ann fought to maintain the connection, drawing on every aspect of her understanding of neural architecture. He's using my own research against us, Emotional targeting through the empathy link. Then let's use it against him, Marcus suggested. If the empathy link can transmit emotions, it can reflect them back, and finished understanding immediately. Using the deepest level of the empathy link protocols, aspects she had never implemented due to ethical concerns, and created a neural mirror. As silence directed waves of fear, despair, and rage toward them, the mirror reflected those same emotions back to their source. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Silence's attack faltered as his own emotional weapons turned against him. Through their dyad, Anne and Marcus pressed the advantage, tracing the neural pathways back to the physical source, Dr. Ortiz's neural interface in the ethics division. Now, and commanded, the isolation protocol. Their shared consciousness reached into the core nexus systems, initiating the emergency procedures. Throughout the neural fabric, safety systems began disconnecting nodes, creating fire breaks in the network to contain the emotional contagion. Silence fought desperately to maintain control, but the reflected emotions had weakened his neural position. "You don't understand what you're doing," he projected. "Humanity needs guidance, structure, freedom from emotional chaos. Humanity needs choice, and countered, including the choice to feel." With a final, concentrated effort, they completed the isolation protocol. The core nexus disconnected from the global network, severing Silence's access to the neural fabric. The emotional contagion, cut off from its source, began to dissipate. In the immersion chambers, Anne and Marcus returned to normal consciousness, the neural interfaces powering down around them. Technicians rushed to assist them as they emerged, disoriented and exhausted from the neural battle. "Did it work?" Anne asked, her voice hoarse. "The emotional contagion is contained," confirmed the chief technician. "Neural fabric nodes are reporting stabilization worldwide." Colonel Tran approached, his usual stoic expression marked with unusual respect. "Dr. Ortiz has been apprehended. Her neural patterns show signs of extensive self-modification. She essentially rewrote her own emotional responses to embody this silence persona." "And the Void Weavers?" Marcus asked. "We're tracking them now. With silence contained, they've lost their coordination. It's only a matter of time." Anne nodded, relief washing over her. But as the immediate danger passed, a new reality emerged. The neural fabric, humanity's greatest achievement in connection, had proven vulnerable to its greatest threat: emotional manipulation. "The neural fabric will need to remain partially offline until we can implement comprehensive safeguards," she said, already contemplating the monumental task ahead. "Is that even possible?" Tran asked. "How do you secure something as vast and complex as the neural fabric?" Anne looked to Marcus, who had spent years warning about exactly these risks. "Not through technology alone," she admitted. "We need a new approach, a neural ethics charter that places emotional autonomy at its center." "You're talking about fundamentally redesigning the fabric," Marcus noted. "Yes," and agreed. "And this time, with full awareness of both its potential and its dangers." In the weeks that followed, the world adjusted to a new reality. The neural fabric operated at reduced capacity, with emotional transmission protocols temporarily disabled. The public explanation, a system-wide upgrade, obscured the truth of how close humanity had come to emotional subjugation. In a secured laboratory deep within the Synergy Research Center, Anne and Marcus worked to rebuild what had been broken. With Colonel Tran's reluctant blessing, they assembled a team of neural architects, ethicists, and security experts to design the new Neural Ethics Charter. The core principle must be consent, and insisted during one late-night session: no emotional transmission without explicit authorization from both sender and receiver, and no permanent modifications to emotional processing under any circumstances. Marcus added, the memories of Silence's plans still fresh. As they worked, a new understanding emerged between them: the architect who had believed in technology's potential, and the critic who had foreseen its risks. Their perspectives, once opposed, now complemented each other in a balance of innovation and caution. 6 months after the Void Weaver's attack, the neural fabric reactivated under the new charter. The Empathy Link Protocol, rebuilt with multiple safeguards, allowed people to share emotions once again, but now with full awareness and control. Standing on the observation deck of the core nexus, and watched as the neural visualization showed the first emotional transmissions under the new system. Each appeared as a gentle pulse of light, flowing between consenting minds across the global network. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Marcus observed, joining her at the viewport. "Connection without coercion. We got it right this time," and agreed. The balance between advancement and safety. "For now," Marcus cautioned, ever the skeptic, "technology evolves, so do threats. Then we'll evolve too." Anne replied, "That's the one thing silence never understood. True connection, true humanity, isn't about eliminating challenges. It's about facing them together." Below them, Nexus City pulsed with activity. Billions of minds once again linked through the invisible web of the neural fabric. But now, each connection carried not just thought but understanding, the shared knowledge that within the vast network of humanity, every mind remained sovereign, every emotion authentic. The neural fabric, once merely a web between minds, had become something more profound, a testament to humanity's capacity to connect without surrendering what made each person unique. And in that balance lay its true power, not in perfect harmony, but in the beautiful complexity of billions of individuals, thinking, feeling, and growing together.